What's up, gang? I am on here just a little bit early so that I can add Mary to this because this is my first time doing this. So bear with us. Okay, okay, okay. Hold on.
Ooh, 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 here we are!
There
Can
you
you see
are.
me?
What's up, baby?
I can't see you!
Uh-oh. I can see you.
Okay, okay. Well, shoot, I wish I... Let me see what that means. Oh, nope, see? I was like, let me see what that one means because I turned it off. Okay, I'm sure you'll probably pop up at some
Okay,
point.
I can see you. This is the joys and funs of going live with somebody else for the first time. This is gonna be an adventure, I think.
I think so, but I think it's going to be a really fun adventure.
I agree. Yeah, I think we'll allow like a few more minutes just to make sure, let some people come in. Be like
Okay.
30 more seconds, really.
Oh, yeah, no worries, no
But
worries. How
girl,
are you doing?
I'm good. I was just about to say your bangs look so good.
Are they banging today? The bangs are
Okay,
banging.
work. You look so cute.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you
so
so much. I
welcome.
wish I could see you. I would tell you you look cute, but I mean, I know you're cute, so you're looking real cute today, I'm sure.
I appreciate you. We tried out a new headbang thing. Headband. Okay, I see a few people joining. I'll just kind of start by laying down what's about to go down.
Let's do it.
So this is Mary. She is a very intelligent person, and she is going to educate us a little bit more about how to understand food labels, what they mean, how to best interpret them, how to use them for your goals and to your advantage. So, with that, I'm going to turn over the floor to Mary. She's going to introduce herself, and then we'll do a little bit of a Q&A at the very end. So put all your questions in the chat, and we'll answer those at the end.
Sweet. Hi,
All right.
everybody. Thank you so much, Samantha, for introducing me and for inviting me to be a part of this. This is so exciting, and I'm just honored to be here and also to have you as my friend. Like, it's just such a blessing. We've gone through a lot of different things together, and so to come together and share this information is just wonderful. So my name is Mary. I am a certified health and life coach, and I'm also just an overall health enthusiast, as well as just a person that likes to gather all of this like confusing information and do a lot of research on it and then synthesize it and share it with people. That's like really one of my passions. It's actually one of my major passions. So that's how I got into learning about nutrition labels, and I've also created a few more presentations that I do over what the next one is over food dyes, artificial flavors, and preservatives. And then the one after that's going to be about artificial sweeteners because there's just a lot of misinformation that's out there as well as just a lot of confusing information. And so I think it's really, really important to be able to boil all of that down and make it accessible for other people as well as myself. Like, it's very interesting to me. So I'm like, I want to know. And so when I have that urge to know, I want to share it with everybody. And my husband can only listen to me talk about it so much. So I'm like, I need to share this with other people too. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are looking at the nutrition label on foods, and we're going to go over 4 of the areas on this label and decipher what it means. So I don't know if this is backwards to you. It probably is. I'm going to just hold it up anyway because this is all that I've got. So this is what a normal nutrition label looks like. You can see the various portions. So I'm just going to start at the first. So the serving sizes. I thought it was extremely interesting when I first started researching this the fact that serving sizes are not, um, they're not calculated based off of how much you should eat of a thing. It is actually based off of how much people usually eat of it. So if you have like a bowl of, if you have cereal and you eat a bowl of cereal, the amount that you're probably going to eat is around like a cup or a cup and a half. And it's interesting because when they first started looking at serving sizes back in the like 1930s, as they started to kind of get more regulated on what even the food label was, and regulating what was on it, they just grabbed a bunch of nutritionists and dietitians and they put them together and they were like, okay, we're going to take some of the most basic foods and we're going to create basically like a standard of how much people eat of this. And then we're going to dissect that and say, you know, in this amount of food, there's this amount of sugar, there's this amount of fat, there's this amount of carbs. And that's going to be how we have like a universal way to determine what a serving size is. So it's not even, and like if you go to the FDA website, it will say, the serving size is not based off of how much you should eat of a product. It is how much people usually eat. And that just kind of blew my mind. So, because we pick up the food and we're like, oh, it says we can eat this much and still be healthy or whatever. And that's not necessarily the case. So, the first portion there is the serving size, and of course it is based off of like cups and grams. That's really the amount or the way that it's measured. And then the next one we're looking at is the calories. So everybody knows calories. Everybody was freaking out about calories for a really long time because they were like the units of measure for the energy that we can gain from eating this food. And counting calories was like a huge thing because people wanted to lose weight. They were like, in order to lose weight, we have to have less of these units of energy in our body, which is not necessarily the case. The calories, I would say, are probably like some of the lower things to be considering. It's something to know, but I think that calories themselves they fluctuate a lot, and calories themselves also aren't really, so I don't know, to me it just seems like kind of a number that's thrown out. There's really no way to know how much energy we get from something, but that I don't know, it's just kind of confusing in that way. But 2,000 calories is generally what is accepted as like the max amount of calories per person. Of course, it depends on the age, the weight, the sex, the amount of activity that you do. And one of my good friends who actually is an enthusiast of this as well, and her mom is she is like a holistic pharmacist. She creates vitamins and minerals to be sold on the market. She explained during one of my presentations that 2,000 calories is actually the base level for how many calories you should be eating. It obviously depends on what the calories are made of. If there are 2,000 calories of sugar, you're not going to get a lot of benefit from that. But if there are 2,000 calories of healthy carbs or healthy fats or a combination of all of those things, which is ideal, then obviously you're going to glean more from that and, you know, hopefully be healthier because of that. So the next one that we're going to look at here, the next portion, are the nutrients. So that is all of this funness right here. And I have notes here, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. So essentially, what we're looking for when it comes to nutrients are obviously eating more of the nutrients that we need and less of the nutrients that we want to limit. So the nutrients that we want to get less of is obviously the saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. Of course, these nutrients are associated with, when we eat them in excess, they're associated with risk of developing health conditions like cancer at the most, like that's like the worst. But at the least, cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure. So those are the ones that we're wanting to limit the most. And then the nutrients that we want to get the most of are going to be number one, dietary fiber. So much, like number one. That's just like the most important nutrients to be getting. Vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. And if you look at certain food labels, those may be listed, but there's also labels out there that don't have those listed at all. And it's mostly due to the fact that like the product that is being sold is not high in those things. So it doesn't really have to list them. It'll be just a bunch of zeros, So those are the ones to be more, getting more of essentially. And dietary fiber is like key. Obviously, it helps with our bowel movements, with our glucose levels. It keeps them low, and our cholesterol levels are also maintained at a low rate. And it also reduces calorie intake. So the high fiber foods that we see are going to be those fruits and vegetables, man, as well as grains. Those also help to sweep our intestines and keep them clear so that we can continue gaining hormonal balancing and also water intake. Like fruits and vegetables, they've got the fiber, they've got the water, they're just kind of a match made in heaven. And then the next line here that we're going to look at, which is one of the more important ones as well, is the sugars. So you're going to see down here, it says total sugars and also added sugars. So I thought this was interesting because I wasn't quite sure what the difference was between added sugars and total sugars. But total sugars are the sugars that are naturally present in foods and beverages, as well as milk and fruit. So the total sugars are, already naturally in there. And then the added sugars are the ones that are obviously added. Like that's going to be your honeys, your, high fructose corn syrup. That's going to be your packaged sweeteners, like all of those lovely artificial sweeteners. And so it's important to know that in your total sugars, the total amount includes the added sugars. And so it's difficult to know, like, how much of this is from naturally occurring sugars, and are they the best ones to be consuming, or are they just added sugars? So you're going to want to look at that when you're making decisions about what to buy. And then the final portion are the daily values. So those are the percentages over here. And the daily value for each nutrient is how much of a nutrient you should be consuming in a day, obviously. I don't know, like I say it backwards like that, and I'm like, it just makes more sense when you explain it that way, because like essentially I have another chart here. So when you're looking at a daily value of food, you're looking at, I don't know if this is backwards as well, it probably is, but you're looking at the max amount of the 100% of a nutrient that you're getting in a day. So it actually has those percentages, the daily value percentage. It shows how much of a nutrient in a serving of food that you are contributing to your daily food intake. So the daily value helps you determine if a serving of food is high or low in nutrient. So if we're looking at this here, we can see that in this example nutrition label, if you look at total fat, this nutrition label has 12% of the total fat that you are consuming in a day. So 12% of the total amount, the total value of fat that you should be consuming in a day. That's what that means. So when you're looking at high or low, the 5-20 rule is essentially what we're looking at. So 5% daily value or less of a nutrient per serving is considered low. So 5% or less is considered low. 20% daily value of a nutrient or more is considered high. So if you're looking at, sugar and it has, oh my gosh, for example, Skittles. If you're looking at one package of Skittles, you're looking at 90% of the daily value of sugar that you should be having in a day. 90%. It is just so crazy to me. It's actually 45 grams of sugar that you're consuming in one package of Skittles.
That's so crazy.
So isn't it crazy? And like once you know these numbers and you know these figures, you look at food so differently because you're like, oh, it's just Skittles. It's like, I mean, it's candy, obviously. It's going to have a high amount of sugar in there, but like when you look at the daily values, you're like, oh my God, that is so much sugar. And then you consider like, oh, what if I had a coffee during that day? And what if I had, a bowl of cereal in the morning or something? And so you're way over your daily value of sugar that you should be consuming by that point. So it's just something to be aware of. So obviously, there is also something called the upper limit and the lower limit. So the upper limit is we need to eat less than the 100% daily value. The lower limit is we need to eat at least this amount. So when we're looking at the upper limit, of course, we're looking at those nutrients we're needing to avoid, not really avoid, but just limit, like the saturated fats, trans fats, and the sugars. So we're looking at, we need to eat below 100%, obviously. And then with the lower limit, we need to eat at least 100%, if not more, of dietary fiber, and then those really important nutrients like the calcium, iron, potassium. Those need to be at least, 100%. You want, I mean, ideally. So, and then it's really interesting with the nutrients here as far as like trans fat and what is it, protein and the saturated fats. And sugars. There we go. So with those, there's actually not a daily value suggestion because they're obviously the ones that we are trying to eat the least of. And so, yeah, for protein, a daily value would be presented if a product said that it had a certain amount of protein in it. But if it doesn't, then it's not, it's not a value that is recommended or presented with a daily value percentage. So all of that to say, when we're looking at the nutrition label, it's highly imperative to know that the ingredients that we're needing most of are going to be obviously the nutrients that are going to benefit us the most. Sugar and fat, not so great, but the carbs, even carbohydrates, come in all different forms. So again, we're looking at like healthy carbs that are going to be like grains as well as fruits and vegetables, and of course those come with fiber and it comes with water. So yeah, that is an overall view of the nutrition label itself. When I present on this, I also give kind of like a background on the history of nutrition labels because it's actually relatively a new thing. So within the last like 50 years or so. And it comes about because back in like the early 1900s and even in the 1800s, when all of these things were being manufactured, all of this food was being manufactured, there weren't any regulating bodies that were looking at the values of what were in these products, and so people were just kind of like throwing stuff out on the market and trying to make money and creating all of these chemicals and things that they were putting in the food, and nobody was there to stop them, and people were getting sick and dying. And so the regulatory body that came and was like, all right, we're going to figure this out, was the USDA. That was the very first one to govern it. Oh my gosh, a cardinal just flew in front of me. Sorry. Um, but anyway, so the USDA comes in with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act in the 1930s, and then somewhere between 1930s and the 1960s, the FDA is created, and so the USDA transferred all of their power to the FDA. And then in the 50s, they actually cracked down on food additives and things because there was a specific color that was added to like all this Halloween candy. And it was like orange number one. And the children and the people that were consuming this Halloween candy started getting extremely ill. And it wasn't a regulated color at the time, but it was being used to create candy. And James Delaney, who was I believe he was a state representative, he came to the courts and was like, "We have to do something. We can't keep forcing people to figure out what is best for them and what is not best for them just by trial and error." And so we have to be able to regulate this stuff and say what is toxic and what is not toxic, at least a little bit. So they created all kinds of different legislation around that. And so now there are mandatory like certification programs for different ingredients that are in food and everything. And then, you know, the actual creation of the label started happening more closer to like the late 70s to the early 90s. That was where they kind of cracked down on what exactly was going to be listed on the label and like the daily values and things like that. And then up to currently in like 2016, they updated the like the daily values and the serving sizes because we're consuming more of these foods. And so they were like, well, those serving sizes aren't the same as they were back in the 70s, so now we have to kind of adjust them to match the market for how much people are actually consuming. And so it's constantly fluctuating. It's still not perfect, I would say, but understanding what these values are and how to, you know, decipher them when you go to the store is just a highly important skill to have, especially when we're feeding the next generation and we're feeding ourselves. So that was my presentation about the nutrition labels.
That was awesome. Mary,
Thank you.
thank you. That provided a really nice broad scope of everything from the history, a little bit of the history. I know there's so much
Yeah,
and
there's a
it's so exciting
lot.
to get into all the details, but I think you know, my question to you, if I were a well, I am a consumer, but
Yeah.
as a consumer, what do you think are you've talked about total daily values, sugar and added sugar, fiber, and then vitamins and minerals and such as well.
Hmm.
Um, if you're going into the store and you're trying to figure out which option of, let's just say, a cereal is going to be the best option for you, just for general health and wellness, what would
Hmm.
you advise to be the first thing, or at least the most important thing that they should be looking at?
So for cereal specifically, I would say sugars is going to be the number one like thing that I look at, honestly. Because especially for the first thing that you eat in a day, you don't want to spike your blood glucose like to the moon. And so sugars is going to be the very first thing that I look at, as well as I'm just an ingredient snob. I'm like, I gotta know what is in this thing, because even if it's like lower in sugar, there could be some really terrible ingredients that are, you know, making the thing up. And so I'm going to be looking at colors because, you know, most cereals out there aren't just bland and colorless. A lot of cereals, especially ones that are marketed to children, are not saying I'm a child, but just saying a lot of cereals that are marketed to children have colors. And like as I'm going to talk about in my next presentation, colors are extremely detrimental to our brain health. they're actually in the category of like excitotoxins, which can uh, pass the blood-brain barrier and go in and start killing off neurons, which is why we see a lot of like aggression and hyperactivity in children when it comes to cereal. So I'm going to be looking at ingredients, and I'm going to be looking at that sugar as well. And then the third one is going to be that dietary fiber, because essentially you're wanting to contribute to your body's natural function. And so fiber is the number one thing to look for like benefit when it comes to cereal. And I would also just say cereal is just like not a really great source of much in the morning, unless it is high in fiber and low in sugar. So that's what I would say.
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Now, for
Mhm.
people who are unaware of how to read the ingredients list, could you speak about how to read the ingredients list? What does the order mean? Tell us about it.
Yeah. Yes. So when you're looking at an ingredients list, you're actually looking at like the things that are listed first are the higher in quantity, and then as you go down the list, the lower ingredients are the least in quantity. So that's why oftentimes you'll see like, oh, for example, let's do like, I don't know, crackers or something. You're gonna see like flour. You're gonna see some kind of sweetener. You're gonna see, maybe like milk or something. And then they'll say like near the middle, it'll say less than 1% of, and then it'll list like all of the preservatives and all of the oils and all of the other things that are in it to make it up. And so what you're really wanting to look at is what are the main ingredients that we're looking at? Like what are the highest values which are going to be found at the top of the list. And then, for me, I'm looking at the complete list. I'm not just going to stop with like the first few things. But that's how it's set up when you're looking at it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good information. Um, as far as within that ingredients list too, if you're looking at like let's say you're wanting to buy a tomato sauce,
Hmm.
what should be the first ingredient on that list?
Obviously, tomatoes.
You would
That's gonna be the
think.
very first one. You would think. You would really think. Like basically, when you're looking at any product, you want the first ingredient to be what it is like truly made of. But unfortunately, with a lot of different products, the first ingredient and the most ingredient that could be in a product may be like a preservative or something, or the sugar, if it's really high in sugar, that first ingredient is going to be sugar. And so, yeah, when you're looking at like anything that's really basic like that, essentially you want to see like the highest quality tomatoes as the first ingredient.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's actually interesting because products are allowed to market themselves as a specific thing as long as it contains it. So,
Yep.
for example, I have a plant-based butter that says made with olive oil. But when you turn it around and you actually look at the label, it's first thing is canola oil, second thing is
Yeah.
palm oil, third is coconut, and then like 2% is the olive oil. And
Exactly.
so it's really important as a consumer to not just see what's on the front part of the labeling, but to turn it around, look at that ingredients list
Yep.
and make sure that it's actually that. And another
Exactly.
example is when you're shopping for maple syrup, make sure the ingredients are simple. The first ingredient
Exactly.
in a maple syrup should be maple syrup, not high fructose corn syrup.
Exactly. The same with honey too. It's really difficult to find like pure honey because a lot of the honey that's on the market is boosted with like high fructose corn syrup and things. So
Mm-hmm.
just unfortunate. It's unfortunate that like it takes having to do research on how to, decide about food based off of what's on the box. It's sad that it's not something that is just readily there. It's like it's like they're being sneaky about it, and then it makes me like I'm a little bit of like I have a hard time trusting people, but like in the food in like the supermarket, I'm just like so untrusting of like all the fancy labeling on the front, and I'm just like, nope, I just gotta turn it around. I gotta look at the back and see what actually is being presented. And I love what you said about like, the front is for entertainment and the backside is for education. That's actually from one of the people I follow on here. I think it's like Surviving Vegan or something like that. She's like, you're gonna be entertained by the flashy colors, the flashy imagery and stuff, and also the like little bits of information that they throw out, just like you said with like the olive oil. It's like other products will say, high in fiber or good for your heart, like Cheerios or whatever, when actually they're not that great for your heart, and they're not specifically made to support your heart in that way. So it is something that people really need to be aware of, and not just, accept what's there, I would say.
Yes, Mary, you're bringing up a really good point, which is to make sure that when the front of a product says or claims something specific, like you just said, Cheerios, claims that it's lowering your cholesterol and it's good for your heart, it's so important to not just see the front and be like, oh, great, cholesterol problems are solved. Let me just eat all these
Right.
Cheerios. And actually look at the back and see, okay, well, why would this help my heart? Why would this help my cholesterol? So
Yes.
that I love the point that you just
The
made. Is
question
there anything else?
why.
Oh, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. Is there anything else you'd like to add as like a final thought before we open to questions?
I think what I would like to finish with, because I get nervous that like sharing this information is just going to scare people. Um, it's not meant to cause fear. If anything, it is to empower you to make, the best decision that you can for yourself and your family. Obviously, we all ideally want to eat like the highest quality foods, but for some of us, and for a lot of us, especially in this economical climate, that may not be the most accessible thing. And I'm also not saying that anything that has high in sugar you should completely avoid and, write it off like the plague. It's all about balance. It's all about making educated decisions for your life and your goals, and to be empowered when we go to the store, and also to be creative and explore the options. I think that's so much more fun and exciting, instead of just saying, no, I'm not going to eat that, no, that's bad, but like to be open to the possibilities. I think that is more what we're searching for and what we're aiming for.
Absolutely. I love that you said to not be afraid and that everything's in moderation.
Yeah,
Just make sure you're educated on what you need, and you should be good from there.
absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna look through and see what kind of questions we've gotten. I know one was um, when you're counting your macros, aren't you supposed to minus the fiber from the carbs? Would you like to speak to this, or would you like me to take this one?
I would actually love it if you took that, because I am not one that tracks macros and micros, but I know that you may do that, so you got this.
Thank you. Okay,
You got
well,
it.
I'll share just very, very briefly. Typically, fiber is considered part of the carbohydrate family just because of the molecular structure and the way it impacts your body. Um, and so when we're talking about fiber, like Mary had mentioned earlier, fiber is something that's going to keep you satiated. It's going to help regulate your bowels, regulate expulsion and waste. So when we're talking about fiber, it honestly does depend a little bit on your goals and what specifically your goal is. If you're someone who's like a bodybuilder in competition, absolutely. Fiber is something that you should consider a little bit separately from carbs, especially when you're in the dehydration phase or in that part of your cut where you're getting to that point. But if we're speaking to the general public and general population of people who are just trying to be generally healthy, I would say if if you're like, let me just master actually counting my carbohydrates first, then focus on that. I think the biggest thing is to tackle what you are capable of handling. So if it's something where you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly how much sugar and water and sodium and fiber I get every single day, then yes, absolutely. But if it's something where you're like, Lord help me, let me just figure out how many calories I'm getting or eat a few vegetables today, don't worry about it. It's not a make or break.
Yeah, good
Great. I didn't
answer.
see any other questions posted in the chat. Um, any last words or anything you'd like to add?
Hmm. No, I'm just so happy that we had this conversation and that we were able to flush that out. And it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm just still so grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that you decided to come on. It's been super fun. I'm just looking in here one last time to make sure somebody said hello. Hello.
With my aunt. Hi, hi, Antoinette.
Hello. That's awesome. Well, all right, girlfriend. Thank you so much for coming on here. I hope that this was educational for everybody. And I think in the future, what we might do is source some like FAQs, so that when we come on the live, we have a few questions to go ahead and answer. So be on the lookout for the next time
Yeah.
Mary and I collab. I'm sure we'll do so soon.
Oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
also, Mary is doing a presentation at noon tomorrow if you're local to the Kansas City area. She'll be at Natural Grocers doing a presentation. What's it called?
It is called Food Deciphered, and we are exploring culinary components.
Ooh. So if you have more
Yeah.
questions on like ingredients, like dyes, added sugars, all those things, Mary's going to go super in depth tomorrow. Are you going to be posting that on your page as well as a live?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be on Facebook. I haven't mastered using two phones to do lives, but it's going to be on my Facebook under Mary Christine Weibel. You can just look me up, and it'll be at the Olathe Natural Grocers off of 119th, and we're going to be discussing artificial flavors, food dyes, and preservatives. So I hope to see you guys there.
Sweet. Thank you, Mary. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
And I'll chat with you like in 30 seconds after this is ended. But thank you everybody for joining, and I hope that this was educational. If you have any other topics that you'd like for myself or for Mary or for us both to collaborate on, let us know. And enjoy your day. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Bye.
Okay, bye.